The following video concerns the obscure but fascinating connection between the ancient Egyptian wisdom tradition, the mystery schools of ancient Greece, the work of Plato, and the Greek Hermetic tradition. This video is part 2 of a series on the origins of Hermeticism, exploring the relations to ancient Egyptian, ancient Greek, and Gnostic theology respectively. The information contained in this series is taken from GRS Mead's comprehensive survey of the Hermetic literature and has been rearranged and abridged for the benefit of the viewer. I hope you enjoy. Chapter 11. Concerning the Aeon Doctrine. In a Greek corpus named Clementine Homilies from the 1st century CE, we find a description of the Orphic tradition of the World-Egg and its relation to the concept of Aeon. Orphism was a mystery religion that influenced Pythagoreanism, which originated around the 6th century BCE. The texts tell of the primordial chaos, a mixture of unordered elements, which is likened to an egg. It then discusses the process of the egg's impregnation and its emanation into the light. It relates the titan Cronus to time and the mother goddess Rhea to the moist essence of matter. Together, the movement of matter through time brought forth, as it were, an egg, which is the sphere-like heaven in which all things come to be. The egg is impregnated by a divine spirit, which hatches into the boundless Aeon. The god which is born from the egg is evidently the Logos, which presides in the highest heaven, sending out rays upon the Aeon. The egg represents the boundary of a specific universe, while Aeon represents the boundary of all universes. The text expresses the Orphic tradition of cosmogony, and we can find many similarities with the Hermetic cosmogony, as well as the ideas of both Plato and Pythagoras. The original Orphism blended Hellenic bardic lore with Chaldean ideas from Babylonia, which find their root as far back as the 9th century BCE. Hellenistic scholars thus found confirmation of Greek wisdom in the ancient books of the Chaldeans. Orphic wisdom, and by extension Chaldean, is also reflected in the symbolism of the Roman cult of Mithra. For instance, the Mithraic lion-headed figure known as the Leontocephaline may have a Chaldean origin. It may also share a distant connection to the Egyptian lion-headed figure, Sekhmet. It is also likely that the title Aeon was used to describe this mystic figure in the sacred books of the mystery schools. Furthermore, the Mithraic Magi referred to the supreme god as Cronus, representing time, and which they identified as the Zoroastrian, primordial creator deity Zervan Akarana, or infinite time. The Chaldean and Egyptian wisdom cultures share common root ideas, including the concept of Aeon, and the Egyptian element of the gnosis was revitalized by Chaldean ideas during the Alexandrian period. The Aeon idea became prominent in the early Ptolemaic era, and was used in the popular Hermes cult, where it was applied to Thoth, the good daimon, and Isis. The Pythagoreans associated the Aeon with the concept of the monad, which comes from the idea of oneness. The original Pythagoreans appear to have personified or substantiated the numbers, along with their source. Plato writes in the Timaeus that the Father sought to make the sensible universe resemble the everlasting gods by creating a moving image of eternity called Aeon. Aeon is not time itself, but the paradigm of eternity. It is the consummation of the eternal gods, the pleroma. Though Plato's Aeon was overlooked by philosophers, it gained significance in mystical exploration and influenced the Hermetic literature. The term Aeon shifted from referring to a transcendent unity to a designation for a grade of being. The idea would eventually develop into the Gnostic study of Aeonology. But Tractate 11 of the Corpus Hermeticum provides more precise instruction than Plato's Timaeus. It introduces the ladder of existence: God, Aeon, Cosmos, Time, Genesis. Aeon is the power of God, the paradigm, and the Son of God. The goal is for man to become Aeon, which is the Logos, or intelligible cosmos. Early Egypt had a concept of eternal or immensely long periods of time, symbolized by a pair of primordial gods. The Egyptians associated the idea of Aeon with the sun and moon, and represented a year with the symbol of Isis. The highest god of many mystical communities in Egypt was the god of the Aeons. The distinction between Aeon and God and Aeon and Cosmos in the Hermetic tractate shows the influence of Hellenistic theology, where the demiurge is seen as the second god. In various Christian Gnostic systems, a similar distinction is made between the formative god and the supreme deity, often with negative implications for the former. This distinction arose in Gnostic circles due to the merging of Jewish wisdom and Greek philosophy. The magical papyri also illustrate the distinction between the Jewish creator god and the Egyptian supreme principle. The 8th Book of Moses places the Jewish creator god in the second rank, and there is an invocation to another unknown god. Certain passages also support the idea that the Logos, or Aeon, is the second god in Hellenistic theology. In the Hermetic treatises, the Logos and Aeon are not separate from the supreme deity, but represent aspects of God's eternal energy. Chapter 15. Concerning the crater or cup. He filled a mighty cup with mind, and sent it down, joining a herald to it, to whom he gave command, to make this proclamation to the hearts of men. Baptize thyself with this cup's baptism. Corpus Hermeticum, Tractate 4. The idea of the crater or cup in Hermetic literature is commonly associated with Plato's symbolism. Plato refers to a cup in the Timaeus, which represents the blending of elements in the world soul. However, this symbolism may have deeper roots in Orphic traditions, which also emphasize the concept of multiple vortex-like craters or cups in celestial and spiritual realms. Orpheus referred to ether as the mighty whirlpool, symbolizing the egg or womb of the cosmos. There are higher and lower cups, including the cup of Dionysus, which are associated with the overflow of matter. These craters serve as sources or receptacles of souls, and are connected to the progression of matter from subtle to gross states. Overall, the crater represents the foundational state of matter in each plane or state of existence. The vision of Aridaeus, as described by the Middle Platonist Plutarch, tells the story of how Thespesius encounters a chasm and a crater, surrounded by foliage that emits pleasant scents. This place, known as the place of Lethe, or oblivion, is associated with Dionysus. Thespesius is forcibly taken away from this place, as it awakens desire and drags the soul into generation. Later, he observes a huge cup with flowing streams, gradually losing its varied colours to a brilliant white. The idea of the cup as a symbol of unity and mixing was not invented by Plato. It was a familiar image in the Orphic tradition and well known to the Pythagoreans. In our Hermetic treatise, the cup symbol is associated with the monad or oneness, a concept from Pythagorean philosophy. Chapter 14. The Vision of Air. To the mindless ones, the wicked and depraved, the envious and covetous, and those who murder do and love impiety, I am far off, yielding my place to the avenging daemon. Corpus Hermeticum, Tractate 1. The daemon mentioned in this passage receives the man's way of life, or form of personality, at death, and Plato's story of which is found in the Republic, shares similarities with this idea. The myth tells of a man who awakens on his funeral pyre after being killed in battle. Then shares the experience he had in the afterlife. Describes how he found himself in a mysterious space between Tartarus and heaven, observing the turning point of the ascent and descent of souls amidst 7 spinning spheres. These spheres symbolize the world engine of fate, controlled by the daughters of necessity. The 7 circles revolve within the larger revolution of the spindle. Each circle has a siren, and 3 fates, named Lachesis, Clotho, and Atropos, who sing in harmony while manipulating the spindle. Souls are instructed to choose their own destinies, daimon, and lives. Lots are drawn for each of the souls, except for air. Samples of various lives are presented, including those of powerful rulers and famous individuals. The rank of the soul is determined by the chosen life. Riches, poverty, health, and disease are intertwined in the available options. Air witnesses the choices of souls for their next lives. Their choices are influenced by their past experiences and emotions. Some souls choose lives of power, fame, or revenge, while others choose simpler lives. The souls are assigned daemons to oversee their chosen lives before descending to the plane of forgetfulness, where they drink from a river that makes them forget their past lives. During the night they are reborn in various ways, while air wakes up on the funeral pyre. Chapter 13. Plato on Metempsychosis. The soul's vice is ignorance, being blinded by the body's passions and enslaved by unfamiliar and burdensome forms. Unaware of its true nature, the soul becomes a ruled entity, bearing the body as a burden, not as its ruler. Corpus Hermeticum, Tractate 10. To better understand this passage, we can refer to Plato's doctrine of soul transmigration, where the soul is depicted as moving through different forms. In the soul's journey described in the Phaedrus, those who follow God resemble him and keep their heads lifted in the celestial paradise. Some souls strive but cannot reach the higher spheres, while others break through to find truth and knowledge. Souls that fail to follow God fall and lose their wings of knowledge, and their next incarnation depends on their level of insight and righteousness. After 1,000 years, souls are judged and undergo correction or receive rewards. Souls without truth never attain human form, while those who love wisdom engage in divine recollection. By pursuing the divine, one becomes truly perfect. Such individuals may appear mad to others who cannot perceive their divine inspiration. Plotinus and other disciples of Plato shed further light on the doctrine of metempsychosis. It is debated whether the human soul literally inhabits animal bodies, or only human bodies reflecting animalistic traits. Proclus explains that animalistic characteristics resemble human vices. He explains that it is the life principle, not the body, that defines the brutish nature, and according to Hermes, a human soul can never return to an animal body due to the will of the gods. Chapter 9. Plutarch on the mysteries of Isis and Osiris. In this final chapter, we turn to the sublime concept of the Logos through the insights of Plutarch, a learned Greek Platonist who delved into the mysteries of Osiris and Isis. Plutarch's profound understanding goes beyond formal rituals, emphasizing the importance of searching deeply into the essence of sacred rites. He finds refuge in the Logos, navigating between atheism and superstition, and acknowledging the limitations of human understanding in grasping the glory of the highest reality. Plutarch's wisdom leads him to the belief that human souls, entwined in bodies and passions, can only glimpse God through the perception of a philosophically trained mind. Plutarch explores various theories to explain ancient myths, particularly the Osiris myth. He dismisses the ideas that the gods were ancient kings or natural phenomena. Instead, he sees some truth in the theory that they are daemons, and the theory that they are Pythagorean harmonies, though he ultimately finds these theories insufficient. He addresses the complexities of Egyptian animal worship, taboo, totemism, and incense-burning customs. Ultimately, he believes that understanding the true nature of man and his relation to the divine nature, which is the eternal wisdom and logos, is the key to unravelling these mysteries. At this point, Mead provides a full translation of Plutarch's treatise on Isis and Osiris, written around 100 CE. It is a relatively long work, so it is better suited for its own video. When complete, this will be linked in the description below. The treatise is addressed to Clea, a distinguished Delphic priestess with an interest in philosophical concepts. Plutarch emphasizes the need for a deeper understanding beyond intellectual modes of thought, and suggests the importance of direct contact with the mystery. The main source of Plutarch's information is believed to be the now lost treatise of Manetho on Egyptian religion. Plutarch's treatise provides a comprehensive account of the ancient Egyptian myth of Osiris and Isis. This root mystery myth has remained consistent throughout history. Osiris and Isis were cosmic or supercosmic beings, and their story relates to the Christ stage of manhood. The views entertained in the first centuries, as seen in Philo of Alexandria's writings, confirm these notions. Plutarch's work therefore helps us to understand the context in which the Hermetic treatises were written. And that's all for part 2 of this series on the origins of the Hermetic tradition. Parts 1 and 3, on Egyptian and Gnostic religion respectively, will be linked in the description below, along with a video on the aforementioned treatise on Isis and Osiris when they are ready. If you'd like to support this channel, you can also find out how to do so in the description. Thank you for listening, and I hope that you have a good day.